So hello, my name is Jasmine. I'm from the New Black Film Collective's Only Joking project, supported by Newham Heritage Month, to interview comedians from the Stratford comedy scene about their experience and career journey in stand-up comedy over the last 20 to 30 years. I'm here with Quincy. Quincy, if you'd like to give a little introduction about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Quincy, stand-up comedian, born and bred in East London. I've been doing stand-up now for about 20 years. Radio presenter, former DJ.
Well, would you be able to start us off on what inspired you to start stand-up comedy?
I've always been interested in comedy. I think that when I was growing up, my dad used to listen to people like Dave Allen, and some of the stand-ups used to, like himself, Dave Allen, and a few others used to come on after Match of the Day, so it was pretty late. So I knew it was risque that it came on after Match of the Day. Me and my dad used to watch, and then we had to go to bed, and then my dad used to watch that program, like a Dave Allen show and a few others. And I've always been intrigued of how stand-up is very similar to preaching, and how one person can captivate an audience and keep them engaged for a period of time. And then I saw Richard Pryor's Live at Sunset Strip at my cousin's. And then I saw Eddie Murphy Delirious. But what really done it for me was watching the Real McCoy with the stand-up. And then from then, a major event happened in my life, and I said, I don't know what's around the corner for me, and I just took it from there.
Amazing. So how did where you grew up influence your comedy?
How did I say that again?
So how did where you grow up influence your comedy?
I think growing up from Caribbean descendants, in an area of East London which is predominantly white, there was I use the word adventures, a lot of adventures and a lot of reality checks. And I think that having the two kind of cultures entwined in each other, so when I closed my door, that was my safe haven, but it was very much a Barbadian household. My influences of aunts and uncles coming over and me going over to family members' house, but very much in the house was very traditionally West Indian. And then going out on the road and streets and that with my friends and school friends, it was very much like East End, but old school East End. So the two cultures are blended, and I had the experience of being around old East End families, being in that kind of environment. So to talk about it is pretty easy.
So how was it then developing your comedy and your career in the Stratford comedy scene?
How was it? It was I had to make the transition of being a DJ. I was a DJ first, so I had to make that transition first. But I think I found it pretty easy enough because I was pretty known in my area. The only difficulty was people getting used to me telling jokes instead of DJing or other activities I used to get up in, and coming away from that kind of thing. So doing my first show in East London on by myself was nerve-wracking, but it was pretty easy because I got a lot of support. I got a lot of support, which I was very, very grateful for.
Do you feel that the Stratford comedy scene has changed a lot over the last decade?
You don't realise how much talent is in East London, and because travelling throughout my time doing stand-up, you meet different people from different parts of the country, but there's a pool of talent here, and I think that I've always been around comedy from a character point of views and individuals, like the guys in the fruit and veg stalls and the old school markets there. They used to speak and deliver and sell their particular goods. So just as in the East London scene, it was very much I found it fascinating, and I found it intriguing, and I found it was a world that I wanted everybody to know about.
How do you feel then, or what do you feel is different about the East London scene to other areas?
I think East Londoners have always been very cheeky chappies. They've always got that reputation. Cockneys have always had that reputation of being Jack the lads and a bit confident, you know what I mean, a bit cocky. And they use their mouth to manipulate a situation. So yeah, compared to any other scene, very much working class, just with a bit of a, I mean, any other working class city, but I think that the East London scene is East Londoners going through what they've experienced. They would look at humour as a form of a coping mechanism.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do you feel then that the East London scene has opportunities or more opportunities for you to grow and progress your career in comedy?
Um, you can only progress if you travel and experience things outside of your area. You could have East London can give me it will always give me a foundation, but you need to come out of the area to experience and to be accepted as an all round, well balanced and well versed comedian.
Mm, absolutely. So we'll go on to talking about you transitioning from DJ to doing stand-up comedy. What was your first gig like?
My first ever gig was actually in Camden. It was the best feeling I've had apart from birth of my children. And my first boxing match, it was on par with that. It was just the fact of the support and the love I got. It was just second to none. It was second to none, and people gave me a lot of encouragement when I went on the stage. And I think what worked for me, because I was different to the other acts. My style was different. It was very much true to me for East End. I didn't need to add in the West Indian element to me. I still find myself. So yeah, it was an amazing experience.
Mm. What comedians do you find actually influenced you then growing up and getting into that?
So I say Dave Allen, the late great Dave Allen. And it wasn't so much comedians who got me into that interaction. It was more reggae artists, reggae MCs, DJs on sound systems, who used to keep audiences entertained. And I used to listen to the likes of like people like Professor Nuts and Lieutenant Stitchy, Pepper San, and even some of the reggae stage shows, how they captured an audience by singing their songs, but obviously talking to them in between, but keeping them on a high. So very much, and how they put together their lyrics. So that was it was more reggae artists, the late DJs, reggae DJs, who really inspired me. But like I said, there were the odd comedians who just for jokes, gags. Bob Monkhouse was one that I really used to like. I used to listen to and appreciate what he did. Got Frankie Howard as well, and then early Lenny Henry back in the day, when he was doing stuff which was very relatable to me. Was a big influence. And obviously later on in my years, the American comedians.
That's an amazing mix of inspirations, I guess, just make a really
Mm.
like complex scene. When you first started out, what did you struggle with the most going into comedy?
What I struggled with my own black people not understanding that not everything black has to come from Jamaica. And it was giving black audiences a different perspective of a black person. we are non-monolithic as individuals. We are spread and come in all shapes and sizes and accents. And you're going to hear from an individual who is coming from an East End perspective and who is coming from a Barbadian's perspective, but very much lives the Black experience. So I would say it was being accepted from Black audiences at first was a struggle, but it was only a struggle because I wasn't pandering to deliver what makes them laugh. It's like you're going to know who I am and what I'm about and judge me by my character and what I deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you handle then telling jokes for an audience that were from a different background?
How did I handle? I just kept consistent and made sure I was myself. I didn't shy away or pretend to be anybody else. I mean, and I weren't going to follow suit for the other comedians. And I appreciate where the other comedians came from. But I had to be consistent, and to this day, this is who I am, and this is my view on life. And if you feel it's uncomfortable in your life, you can relate to, then so be it. But this is what you're gonna hear from my perspective.
Were there any crowds that you found particularly tough?
Um, every crowd's tough, but I think that it wasn't so much tough. It was very much more of a connection, because I normally get, "Oh, you're really Cockney, you are," and they live like three doors away. And so it was more of it wasn't a specific audience. Yeah, I've had gigs which I've had to fight and struggle, but the bottom line is it was more of finding who I am and letting the audience know that this is what I do and this is who I am.
Have you found that the audience has changed quite a lot in the East London scene over the past?
Yeah, because there's no one in East London lives in East London no more. So you know what I mean. Everybody's moved in, so you've all been gentrified. So that comes with, and times have changed. So what you could probably say and deliver growing up to where you're at now, to where the current climate is now, is that it's changed. So you have to move with the times or adapt to the times more.
In terms of kind of going along with adapting with the times, how do you feel your experience has shifted with social media and streaming? How has that changed comedy?
It's changed comedy a lot. It's lessened concentration spans. I am from a generation where you was on in the streets handing out flyers, and people got to know you through radio, because that was the only Black radio was the only form of um, connection with the streets. Obviously now you've got social media, so adaptation. I would say that I do struggle with it. Hence why it took me a bit longer to do this. I do struggle with it because I won't say I'm not technical. I've got 100% better, but it's not my first protocol. And I think that what social media has created is created a jester who does shorts, and it hasn't opened up to who that person is, male or female, what they're about, and social media has created a atmosphere where having an opinion can be detrimental to your career.
Mm. Have you found that a lot with the audiences that are in Stratford and Newham, that they're being affected by this a lot with your?
Only people who have moved into the area. So very much if you're around real East End people, you are very much they can, regardless of where you're from, they should be able to relate to you and understand where you come from. So if I mentioned growing up of a certain demographic of audience, if I said back in the day I used to play football, but it was blacks versus whites, they'd understand. You know what I mean? Because that was the environment I grew up in. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's anything.
Do you feel that your material has been affected by political correctness and cancel culture?
No, I would say that it hasn't been affected because I'm versatile, and this is the thing. I'm lucky enough to be born in an era where you're allowed to make judgments and allowed to use your own judgment on and read a situation. So when I'm in front of an audience, I'm lucky enough that I've been around enough people in different classes and backgrounds to read the situation, or how to deliver a situation. And this is one thing I will always say, that where me as a comedian has it over a social media comedian, because there's no connection with that individual to feed off. You know what I mean? You're feeding off the screen.
Yeah, understand you. Yeah. What do you feel then, or what do you most like talking about through your comedy?
I like to talk about social issues, but I like to talk about me being a father a lot, and my experience as being a father. I think that is not spoken about enough, the experiences of black men raising children. So I tend to draw a lot on that, and I always try to promote positivity, especially when it comes to um, raising children from a black male perspective, because I grew up with uncles and strong positive black men. So I'll always deliver my message from that point of view.
Yeah. What has been your favorite memory then from a show?
Favorite memory was getting my first standing ovation, having people coming up to me saying that what you said resonated with me. It was political, but it was funny and it was honest. And one guy, when I spoke about the passing of my late partner, coming up to me and said to me that he so resonated with what I said, he's going to mend his relationship with his sons. Yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah.
What is your favorite is what is your favorite part then of being a stand-up comedian?
Favorite part. The favorite part of I laugh because my mind went a bit dark then. My favorite part of being a comedian is the happiness and the smiles on people's faces, where that I've made them forget all of their troubles for the period of time I'm on stage, and they tune into me. That's my favorite part of being a comedian.
What was it like then working with other comedians in the Stratford area when you were developing your comedy?
What was it like? We didn't really see each other that much, you know. I mean, it wasn't like a book club kind of thing. It was, oh, you're from so and so, okay. So it wasn't really a big thing, so to speak. It was nice when you had the clubs in East End, and it's very rarely, unless it was like a theme night, it was very rarely that you'd be the only guy from the East End, wasn't it?
You were the representative.
Yeah, this is the theme night. You never really get three Cockneys on the same bill. Like it's like on the mainstream circuit, and I mean, like you won't get three women or, you know what I mean, three musical acts. It was just very much the promoters on the mainstream really wanted to have different elements of people.
Was it always like that in the Stratford comedy scene, that there was only just one from that area?
Is it always like that? Nah, because there's people who break through like the Mickey Flanagans and the Leas and stuff like that, and Cat. There's quite a few. There's never been like that.
Mm. But you weren't all necessarily kind of talking to each other and having that group. It was still quite
No,
separate.
no. When you're being a comic is very solitary. It's very much a David Banner walking at the end of the TV show with the bag or the rucksack. It's a very lonely. It can be a very lonely experience. You become a loner. So unless you're writing together for specific projects, you don't really see each other.
Okay. So it is just quite, is that why you've wanted to branch out of other into other areas, or have you done a lot of circulation within London? Do you see a lot of other people from
I,
Stratford?
I branched out because, like I said, I wanted to be a king, not just in my own castle. I wanted to be a king and be respected, because I know that my experiences, there's going to be people who are going to have similar experiences, regardless of where they're from. But you're just hearing it from a Cockney, a black Cockney.
Are you kind of up to date with the comedians that are in the Stratford area? Who do you feel is coming out of the area at the moment?
Well, I any new comedians coming through, I'm unaware. I mean, I know the older comedians. To be honest, I haven't really seen no new comedians coming through. Um, I've seen a couple of guys on the Instagram, but as in coming through as a stand-up, no, I haven't really seen it. I could name comics from my generation that I saw in closing shows on a regular basis. Cat B, Jeff Innocent, Mickey Flanagan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. We previously also interviewed Donna, and she mentioned that you have a bit of like a Bonnie and Clyde kind of duo going on with your comedy. How was it when you were kind of collaborating with other comedians in the area?
Donna Spence, I think that what made it easier when we bounced off each other, because she's a very much similar personality to myself, and it was very much it was like I we had a connection, and it was a healthy connection, and the audience fell off that connection. But she used to always flirt with me.
She did mention it was a little bit like, she's your woman. You're gonna help people, but how
Yeah,
did that collaboration come about then? When did you two first meet in the area?
we first met um, at Cork's Wine Bar in the West End, but we got mutual friends in East London, and it was music, I think, initially. What we met, and then I had a show. When I put my early shows on, and she came and done some of the bills herself, and Nini and a few others. So yeah, we had mutual friends. That's how we got to meet. And there was a batch of comedians who burst onto the scene after the Curtis Walkers and stuff like that. So yeah, we used to all go down to Cork's Wine Bar in the West End for an event called Come Make Me Laugh, courtesy of my good friend Mr. C.
How is that relationship or, working with other comedians affected your own comedy?
I wouldn't say it's affected my comedy. What I've said is I've always had an eye for a comedian who's got something a bit different about them, male or female. I was supporting the comedian, which I have, in the sense of if they needed some help with a joke or how to deliver it. Yeah. So what was the question again?
Just mainly, well, talking about the relationship you've got with Donna, the fact that you two get along well, you gel. How do other comedians kind of maybe influence you that you know personally in your comedy, or do they?
How many other comedians influenced me? I don't. I wouldn't say I've got admiration for other comedians. Influence me, no. When you first start, you're watching comedians you don't even know. But when there's people you just literally can call up, or you see on a car driving to a gig, it's not so much influence. You can respect their game. I respect their game, but influence you're more concentrating on you and what you're doing before you think about somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you then like to pass on to the next generation of comics?
I would like to pass on, be true to yourself. Most importantly, be honest as a comedian. Don't thieve material, and have faith in you. Have faith in you.
Mm, definitely. Are there any then sort of memories or keepsakes from your early career that you'd want to share with us?
Memories. Kevin Hart, early Kevin Hart coming to my show in Stratford. Early days. He was brought over by a promoter way back in 2006, and blessed the stage, which I was really, really touched by. Obviously, he's Tiffany Haddish got to host a show, and I got a call from Jeannie Asheray, who basically said, "Could you give my girl a chance on the stage? Give her 5. She's coming over to the country." I was like, "Yeah, sure." And booking the comedians who I watched back in the day, and them doing my club, that was a massive, massive highlight. I mean, the likes of Jeannie Asheray come and do my club, and the people I watched on TV, the Curtis Walkers. And I think one of them as well was having my good friend, didn't do no jokes, but he came back for my solo show to help me because we've got that kind of relationship, banter back and forth with Giselba. Was on my first solo show. It was a massive, massive banter, not banter, massive perks, and a highlight for me.
Oh wow, that sounds like you've been mixed with the stars, definitely in that area.
Yeah, we'll really call him a star, not in my eyes. he's my brother, but yeah, star wise,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let other people say that.
Well, this has been great. I just wanted to know if you had any more to add about how you feel about the Stratford comedy scene and what you think is coming up in that time, in that place.
I would say, as in the scene from East London, I would say that there are we're going through tough times financially right now, so there isn't really a massive scene. I'm being consistent and putting on my shows in East London, especially in the area. I would say to businesses who allow people like myself to come and do shows, support your artists, and that goes out to theatres. You know what I mean? If it's Barking, Stratford Theatre, or East, I mean, support your artists, and just come and come and see a rise of more talent coming out of the area we're born and bred. So yeah, that's all I would say.
Amazing, thank you. This is really great to get kind of just a run through of how you've been in the Stratford comedy scene, how it's changed over time, and this has all been really great. So thank you so much.
Anytime, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Apologies for the late start.
No, of course not. Is there anywhere that we can find you, or any plugs that you've got about best places people can keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, if you want to find me, go to my website, www.quincycomedylounge.co.uk. That's www.quincy, QUINCYS, comedylounge.co.uk. That is also the name of my YouTube channel, which I do, and the name of my radio program on Supreme of 99.8. Download the app for that. Yeah, apart from that, same on social media, Quincy's Comedy Lounge, and I'm just trying to build that brand and do that type of everything.
Yes, as we should. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Anytime.